Good morning, Ohio State fans, and welcome back to the 11 Dubcast for Wednesday, August 27th. I'm joined by our fearless leader on the beat, Mr. Dan Hope. Dan, are you jacked and juiced for Ohio State game week? The season is upon us. How are you feeling
Yeah,
today?
three days away. It's getting here fast. Certainly an exciting week for all Ohio State fans and all who love college football.
Yeah, I just hope we get to see it. Well, I know you'll get to see it because you get paid to watch the games, and I got paid to watch the last Ohio State Texas game, or at least help cover it, but not this time. I get to just enjoy this one as a fan. However, we find ourselves in the middle of yet another media controversy right before the season. And no, I'm not talking about the guy that used to exploit Instagram pictures of college girls to become a millionaire media mogul that has now been banned from all the Big Ten stadiums, despite being a Fox sports analyst, if you want to call it that. No, I am talking instead about YouTube TV and Fox being in the middle of a big beef, a contract dispute right before the start of the college football and the NFL season at the expense of us, the college football faithful, the fans. And now we find ourselves in a situation where Fox, after branding this Ohio State Texas game as the biggest season opener of all time, it might be the biggest season opener that nobody actually gets to watch on TV. Because if YouTube TV and I shouldn't say all of TV, but there's a good chunk of the audience that's going to be watching this through YouTube TV. And funny enough, actually, I was a direct TV customer last year. And part of the reason I switched over to YouTube TV was because I wasn't sure I was going to be able to watch football on ESPN while they were in the middle of a dispute last year. A year later, now I'm dealing with the same problem with YouTube TV. So we're just stuck in a never-ending cycle. So you're in a fortunate position in the sense that you're going to be able to see the game no matter what. But I'm sure you share the frustrations of the common Ohio State and football fan. And I'm curious, what are your general thoughts on this topic, having written about it earlier this week when the story broke?
Yeah, so I switched to YouTube TV 2 years ago when ESPN was in the middle of a dispute with Spectrum, and they missed the first week of a college football season, and I said, "That's enough. Done with Spectrum. Switch to YouTube TV." So that tells you right there this happens every year. It's like every year, right around football season, there's some carriage dispute between somebody who happens to air NFL and college football games and one of the major TV service providers.
How
I don't know.
suspicious that the
Yeah.
expiration on these contracts is all around the same sensitive time of the year, almost as if it's a negotiating tactic for one
Well,
side or
I
the
mean,
other.
you look at TV ratings. I mean, you look at every year as the end of the year of a top 100 programs on TV, and like 93 of them are football games. So I don't know exactly how these contracts work, but I do know it's not a coincidence that these contracts happen to come up right around the start of football season. It's 100% a negotiation tactic from both sides trying to get the best deal for each other. But to your point, if this deal does not get made this week, I believe 5 p.m. today is the deadline. YouTube TV and Fox have to make a deal. If that doesn't happen, Fox and Fox-owned stations, which also for sports purposes includes FS1, FS2, Big Ten Network, those stations will go dark on YouTube TV, or at least that's the threat that's being made, that YouTube TV will stop airing those channels if no deal is made today. And so, we're very much in that, danger zone now where Saturday at noon, people who have YouTube TV may not be able to watch Ohio State versus Texas on YouTube TV. Now, I think the one positive, I think, in this case versus the ESPN dispute is Fox is at least as an over-the-air channel. So there are more options for being able to watch Fox, even if you are a YouTube TV subscriber. I know I literally, like a year or two ago, bought an antenna for the sole purpose of knowing these carriage disputes are going to happen from time to time, and I might need it as a backup. So I have like a $15 antenna that I bought from Target that fortunately does pick up Fox. So yes, I will be at the game on Saturday and I will be able to see it with my own eyes in person, but I'm glad I at least have that for other things that may get blacked out on Fox if YouTube TV doesn't come up with a deal. I'm probably not going to rush to switch like I did last time, but it's annoying. I mean, it's frustrating. I mean, I mean, just from YouTube TV perspective, I know since I subscribed, the price has already gone up pretty significantly. It's gone up pretty substantially over the last few years. And so nobody wants to hear it, but like, you know, every time it's always the same script from both sides. Both sides are like, we're trying to get you the best deal that's fair to our customers. We don't care. We just want, we're paying for it. We like yes, it's true that negotiation is part of it, but at the end of the day, it's like, you know, I think you maybe try to assess the situation and say like, who's the bad guy here? It's not like one side's the good guy, one guy's the bad guy. They're both trying to make the most money possible, and when they don't come to a deal, it's the customer that gets screwed.
I'm gonna lean toward Fox being the bad guy just because none of us enjoy Big Noon Kickoff. I was
I
gonna
mean,
say,
I mean, it's like Fox is adding up the strikes here. I mean, you got everybody's already mad about the noon kickoffs. We don't need to get into the whole Dave Portnoy thing, but you got that, you got YouTube TV. It's like it's funny because when the Big Ten made the deal with Fox and they got away from ESPN, a lot of Ohio State fans were happy because they view ESPN as having an SEC bias. But I think Fox is making a strong push for being public enemy number one among TV networks for Ohio State fans.
which is saying something because last time I checked, Desmond Howard is still on the college game day desk for ESPN. And ESPN has had their own host of, contract disputes, as we alluded to earlier in this conversation, that I think bears examining in the question that I'm going to ask you relative to, do we expect this to get resolved before Saturday? And then this entire conversation is moot, which I hope it is. I have to get this joke in there before we move forward. It's nice that you have that antenna for a rainy day, or I would say that, but I would imagine on a rainy day, it may or may not be working depending on the weather in Columbus. Have you actually tested that antenna yet? Have you had to?
I have used
Yeah.
it works well. So it does, it's like, it's weird though, for whatever reason, like it doesn't get NBC. Like I don't know, it's like it only gets for channels from like 6 and above. So if NBC has a dispute like this, I might be out of luck. But
You got to get Peacock
it get
then. You have no
yeah,
choice.
I do have Peacock, but it gets Fox. So at least for this one, I'm like, all right, like I might be screwed on FS1 and Big Ten Network, but I can
Or
probably
you
do it.
can get creative like all the UFC fans such as myself have for now a decade and a half before they struck the CBS deal. Anyway, not that I would ever advocate something like that.
And also
That's
worth
the
noting, there is Fox did recently have start a direct to consumer platform, Fox One. It's $19.99 a month, but there is a 7-day free trial option. So if you've never subscribed to Fox One, that's an option out there. If you need a backup plan, subscribe to a 7-day free trial. Uh, Hopefully you'll only need it for Saturday, and then hopefully things will get resolved.
And given all the mud we just threw on Fox and earlier in this conversation, I can assure you that Dan is not a paid spokesperson for Fox making that statement. Now, let's put a bow on it with this. Based on what we referenced earlier with the ESPN disputes, you're more familiar with the one that Spectrum had than I am, but I shouldn't say fondly, I clearly recall the one that DirecTV had with ESPN last year because I was a DirecTV customer for several upon several years. And what finally led to my family and I canceling the membership that we had was this dispute about, are we going to be able to watch our football or not? And we didn't want to take chances, so we just went to YouTube TV. That ended up being the correct call because that dispute did not get resolved until September 14th, which was after the first week of the NFL season and more than 2 weeks into the college football season at that point. Based on that, it's a small sample size, but I am not optimistic that this is going to get resolved between Fox and YouTube TV until the following week before the first week of the NFL season. I think that Fox is probably going to let this drag out a little too long. They're going to get the egg on their face from hyping up this biggest season opener ever, and then the ratings being very disappointing because of the lack of the YouTube TV audience, and then they're going to cave, and then the deal's going to get struck in the middle of next week. I don't like having you guys as journalists speculate. However, I struggle to find another way to phrase the question other than what do you anticipate the timeline is going to be here? Are you as grim on it as I am, or are there any reasons for optimism you have that a deal is going to get struck before we have the Ohio State Texas game on Saturday?
I'm going to go ahead and take the optimistic view. I have no inside info on this at all, but I'm going to go ahead and take the optimistic view. And sometime Friday night or early Saturday morning, they're going to make a deal because of how big this Ohio State Texas game is. I don't remember what the week 1 games were on ESPN the last couple years when they had those disputes, but I do think this Ohio State Texas game is bigger. I mean, this is the biggest game. And you talk about Fox's biggest games of a college football season. It's this and it's Ohio State, Michigan at the end of the year. So this would be a huge blow to both sides if a deal is not struck. And I kind of think of it, in NFL terms. You think of on Monday, Terry McLaurin, Trey Hendrickson, they had demanded trades. They were holding in, as they call it now, all year. And then, right when it becomes time to set the 53-man roster, season starts next week, got to make some decisions. They both come to deals. So I look at it in that parallel and say, deadline spur action. Do I think a deal happens today? Probably not. Do I think a deal happens before Saturday? I don't know, but I'm going to take the optimistic view and say they figure something out by Saturday. For everybody's sake, I hope they do, because it would really suck if anybody had to miss this game because of a carriage dispute.
Well, I certainly hope you're right. And I don't say this often on this show in the 2 years that I've been hosting, but I certainly hope that I'm wrong in terms of my own view. I will say, too, I would be careful invoking the Terry McLaurin comparison, because one of the reasons I was very optimistic that he was going to sign a deal and play very within short order prior to it getting announced earlier this week was one of Johnny Ginter's favorite stories in the history of the Dubcast was when he recorded a Dubcast episode with Terry McLaurin, and he forgot to record the conversation for the first half hour they had. And Terry at that point was probably well within his right to just blow him off, but he actually he took it in stride and he allowed Johnny to restart the conversation, and they did their whole half hour again from the beginning, from the top. And I thought, you know what, if that guy is that high quality of character to do that for somebody that he owes nothing to, I'm confident that for an organization that recognizes him as a captain and a leader, he's going to get something done. And I don't know if any Fox executive would give Johnny Ginter the same amount of grace that Terry McLaurin did. So, but maybe I'm wrong, and maybe they'll be nice and hash out a deal with YouTube TV, and then we all get to see the opener on Saturday. But we've got a few more days to see if that happens. Hopefully it does. If not, I'm sure all of us will work something out. And regardless, whether you can see the game or not, Dan Hope will give you all the updates you need and keep you in the know in terms of what's happening both before, during, and after the game. So, Dan, we're very grateful to you for that. Thank you. And thank you very much for tuning into the 11 Dubcast. And we'll be back with the Thursday episode tomorrow with our fellow beat correspondent, Andy Anders. Take care, folks.